We're headed on top of the mountain here to Norpana to watch the sunrise. See South Annapurna Mountain. It's beautiful up here, but man, it's a workout. I definitely did not train for this.
When I first jumped on board to be part of a mission trip, I did not know what to expect. The people that were on my team I had not hardly spent any time with before, so who says that we'd get along with each other, especially when we're on the other side of the world for 2 weeks. Our team was made up of our team leader Tyson, assistant team leader Katie, Stephanie, Rochelle, Katrina, and I. To much surprise, as we began doing team meetings, we immediately began growing closer to each other and to God. One obvious question that comes across every single person's mind when wanting to go on a mission trip is, how in the world am I supposed to raise that much money just for a 2-week trip? It is crazy, however. When you need the money, God will provide. I had several instances where I just thought maybe it's not meant to be. Why do I want to go on this mission trip anyways? As a team, we grew together and helped each other raise funds. From shoveling snow all day to a spaghetti dinner at the local church and our personal support letters, we were able to provide everyone on the team with enough money. Immediately after joining a team, you begin to have meetings. In addition to the meetings, we met for breakfast once a week throughout the year for a Bible study. This gave us the opportunity to learn as much about each other as possible. As the school year came to a close, we had to spend a couple days training. Right before we started, I had a chance to catch up with Jonathan Hayward, president of Global Infusion.
Hey everyone, it is day 1 of ropes and I can't believe we're here. I can't believe this time has come already. This is going to be an amazing couple days of getting some fine tuning done on the teams before they're launched into the nations. I'm so excited about what Sterling's done so far this year, but what they're going to do on the field is going to be even more amazing. And these couple days of ropes is when the teams really come together before they're launched out into the nations. And only God knows what's going to happen then. We're thankful to be here and we can't wait to see what happens today.
We learned several skits that would allow us to communicate without speaking, and did exercises to build trust. The skits were very powerful messages that showed why Jesus died for us. We would finish each day at ropes with an evening of praise and worship, along with prayer for all the teams as we headed on our way. As soon as the trip began, we were being presented with our first opportunity to spread the word in the Frankfurt, Germany airport. While waiting for our next flight, a man that was sitting next to us had started a conversation with Stephanie, which led into why we were on this mission trip. Stephanie told the man why we were heading to Nepal, and coincidentally this man was an atheist. Katie ended up joining in on the conversation, and I remember looking around and noticing how many people were listening to what we were saying. After the conversation, one of my favorite parts of the trip took place. Right as we were getting ready to board our plane, a man walked up to us and asked if he could pray for us, and for us to do the same for him. So right there in the airport, before we even reached Nepal, our team was able to impact several people's lives. After about 36 hours of flying, we finally arrived in Kathmandu, Nepal. Right outside of the airport, we met our contact, where we stuffed our luggage and ourselves into this old van and then headed to the house. We got a little tour of the city that day and helped out with the youth group, where we gave our testimonies later that night. The first full day there in Kathmandu was on a Saturday. It's really interesting because the day of worship in Nepal is on Saturday, and then Sunday through Friday is the regular work week. We started the day off going to church that our contact had planned it himself. We were able to do a couple of our skits that our team had learned during ropes. These visual skits are a very effective way to make connections with the locals. The second day we traveled to Pokhara, where we met our porters that would be guiding us along the trails, and we learned about their lives. third day was when the hard part of the trip was going to begin. We were going to trek about 45 miles through the Himalayan mountains on foot. Our destination that first day was a tea hut along the trail. Before going to bed, we were able to provide a service where we did our skits for the people in the area, as well as give them testimonies. We were fortunate to have Ram, who was one of our porters, be a translator for the community. We received a lot of praise afterwards, so it gave us all the more motivation to continue our hike and to spread the word.
Hey everybody, we're getting ready for our first trek to our first village, Orapani. Our porters are now tying our bags down so we can get ready to go. Should be fun. It's sweaty. It's super sweaty.
सामने से क्यों
The next morning, we got up bright and early like every other day. The tea huts are like bed and breakfast, but they provide you with all your meals. I'd ordered what is probably one of my favorite breakfasts of all time, an apple banana pancake. Gotta love apple banana pancakes. The only thing we could do next would be to burn off that breakfast. We immediately hit the trail and began hiking once again. Gorapani would be our destination for the day. We encountered all kinds of different things along the trails, including people's pack mules loaded up and wearing bells, when the owners would be nowhere to be seen. There are also these little flags hanging everywhere along the trails. These flags are used to bless the surrounding area, which is part of the Buddhist belief. Once we arrived at Gorapani that night, we were doing something different that we had never done before. We went on a prayer walk through the community. Basically, we walked around and would pray for individuals and the community, praying that God's love would show through us. Where are we going to be staying tonight? Finally. The next morning started off really early because we were headed up to Poon Hill to watch the sunrise. It was a big tourist attraction that allowed us to climb up to the 10,000 foot mark. Everything was going great and God was really working in our lives. Then our first big obstacle took place. Stephanie was showing symptoms of altitude sickness. When the team came down from Poon Hill, a decision was made that Stephanie was going to backtrack down the mountain so she could recover the quickest way possible. A couple of the porters guided her that route, while the rest of us continued on our way. Nepal is very similar to the US in the sense that we have several different climate types. Nepal has the snow-capped mountains, but also has the rainforest. When hiking through all of the rain, we were all soaked from head to toe, and that's when my worst nightmare took place. My camera started acting up, and the next thing I know, it wouldn't turn on. My camera was officially broke. Later that night, we did a small Bible study with some locals and prayed for Stephanie as we closed out the day. The next morning, we were on our last leg of the trekking trip, and it wasn't going to be easy. I quickly learned that going down is just as hard, if not harder, than hiking uphill. As we approached our pickup area where we met Stephanie and the other porters, a miracle took place.
Well, yesterday we went through a bad thunderstorm and my camera broke. I woke up 5 o'clock this morning for fishtail to get some footage of it, and then hasn't worked the last 6 hours. I've been checking it on and off, and now it literally started working again. So God is great. He's been watching out for me this trip like you guys wouldn't believe. I've been through everything. I keep thinking it's not going to work. Something bad happens. and it's good.
Out of nowhere, while handling my camera, it decided to turn back on. I knew that moment, God never leaves us. It told me that I needed to keep in mind that there is a reason we are doing what we are. I was there not just for the video, but I was there to spread His word. As we finished up the trekking part of the journey, we stopped and waited for a bus to pick us up and take us to Pokhara, where we were able to see some of the stuff that the Hindu culture worships. The bus was loaded up with people, and we were all shoulder to shoulder, and everyone kept to themselves. We spent a couple hours on the bus before we were back in town. When we arrived, we went to view a lake where we took small boats to this island. It had a temple where people would worship a certain god. It surprised me seeing people take off their shoes to pray to these false gods that don't even exist. After that, Mom took us to a restaurant that did cultural dances, and then we were headed to bed.
Have a nice trip.
After several days of hiking, we got the best break ever. We were headed to Bagmera Wildlife Resort. So a quick side note, the roads are absolutely terrible to drive on.
That is flat tire number 3 for us, and we will be on the road again soon.
Nonetheless, changing tires got old quick. As we continued on the road, we were looking forward to going on tours through the wild, showing us different kinds of animals native to Nepal. One of the first things most of the team agreed on was that we needed to go for a swim. After swimming for a while, we were ready for dinner and then bedtime, because the next day, the tours would begin.
Now I can tell what they are.
Oh, you had like all those right there.
No, there's some brown ones up on the hill.
I don't know who was most excited about the next morning. After a good breakfast, we were going to start the day off with a canoe ride down the river. No big deal, right? Well, I never would have expected there was 8 of us in this one canoe, which was just a giant hollowed out tree log. As we went down the river, I was so paranoid because I have no balance whatsoever in a canoe or kayak. As soon as the guy said, "Hey look, there's a crocodile," my body tensed up and not much footage was captured because I couldn't even keep my balance. We then went on an elephant ride through the forest where we saw all kinds of animals. I was able to see another crocodile from the top of the elephant where I wasn't so nervous. We also hiked a little through the trees, showing us termite mounds, rhinos, and other wildlife. After an amazing day of rest and fun, we went to bed knowing we were in the last couple days of our trip. The next morning, we headed back to Kathmandu. A new challenge was presented to me back in Kathmandu. I never told myself once that I wanted to be a teacher. Well, I and the rest of the team had to step up to the challenge. We walked a little over a half mile to the closest school where we split up into groups and taught different classes. We spent one afternoon there and then the next morning teaching this school. The first day I attempted to teach high schoolers some math, but that didn't go too well considering math is my worst subject. On the second day, Rochelle, Katie, and I went and taught these little kids some very basic English. Later on that day, I had the chance to go teach a little older class equivalent to 4th graders. There was this one little boy there that immediately took me over and had my full attention. I don't know if he reminded me of myself or what, but I knew he wanted to learn but was really shy. When I left the classroom that day, I remember looking over at him and caught a picture of him smiling as I waved goodbye. That was the last night we would be staying in Nepal. There was another team there at our contact's house from California, and they were there on a mission trip as well. That night, we all got together and talked about our journey along the way. It was a great night just to pray and join together. Going to bed that night, I knew tomorrow was the day I was headed back home. As the sun came up, our journey came to an end. We went out into the city with our contact and bought some souvenirs that we would take back to the States. reminding us of this wonderful country and its people. We all hated to leave, but it was time for us to go. God taught us so many things. When we first arrived in Nepal and saw the things that we were doing, I was confused because I felt like we weren't doing much to bring people to Christ. But as time went on, one phrase stuck in my head: our actions sometimes speak louder than our words. As I sat and pondered that thought, I really grasped how many people we really impacted on this trip. Every night we were praying for people or doing skits. So many people had the opportunity to hear about Jesus Christ that had never had the chance to before. God worked through all our hearts and presented me with more than I ever predicted. I could not have asked for a better team. We all stuck together and had each other's backs. Although we had obstacles, we knew we were there for a reason. Hopefully one day I can make it back to Nepal and see the work God has done. Why do we do mission trips? Well, I would say it's not just to go see the world. It's an opportunity for us to bring others to Christ, but also the opportunity for us to strengthen our own relationships with God. John 3:16 says, "God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son. Whoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life."